Today I'll be doing parkour while telling you a revenge story about a man who lost his freedom, his face, and the woman he loved. The first time I saw my son, I was standing across the street from the courthouse, wearing a face no one in that city recognized. He was 12 years old. He had my eyes. The same nervous habit of rubbing his thumb against his fingers when he was scared. And he was holding the hand of the woman who had helped bury me alive. Her name was Emily Parker. Once, I loved her so much that I thought love could make a man untouchable. I was wrong. Love did not save me. Friendship did not save me. The truth did not save me. The only thing that saved me was a dying old gangster in a prison yard who looked at me one day and said, "You are too honest to survive this world. Let me fix that. But I should start before the prison, before the new face, before the money, before the boy across the street made me realize that revenge had not taken everything from me." My name used to be Daniel Carter. I was 24 years old, working as a plumber in Queens with my best friend Ryan Brooks. Ryan and I had known each other since we were children. We fixed pipes together, drank cheap beer together, watched each other fall in and out of trouble, and swore we would get out of that neighborhood one day. There were 4 of us back then: me, Ryan, Bob Miller, and Emily Parker. Emily worked as a teller at Northbridge Bank. Bob worked there too, in back office operations. He was the type of man who wore cheap suits like he was auditioning for a life he had not earned yet. Ryan was loud, reckless, funny, and always broke. Emily was the center of everything. She was beautiful in a quiet, dangerous way. Not the kind of beautiful that begged for attention, but the kind that made men change the way they stood when she entered a room. I loved her openly. Ryan loved her silently. Bob loved her like a man who thought love was something he could win if he waited long enough. Emily knew. Of course she knew. Women like Emily always know. But she never said it out loud, and neither did they. For a while that silence kept us all together. Emily and I were planning a life. Nothing grand. A small apartment, better jobs, maybe a little house somewhere outside the city if we got lucky. I was saving for a ring. The night everything began, Emily called me crying. Her father was back. Frank Parker had disappeared from Emily's life when she was 15. He was a professional liar with kind eyes, the kind of man who could steal your wallet and make you feel rude for noticing. He showed up at her apartment carrying an old duffel bag and a story. Emily's younger sister, Lily, was sick. Very sick. She needed surgery, he said. Soon. Without it, she would die. Emily had not seen Lily in years. After their mother died, Frank had taken the little girl and vanished. Emily had looked for them, but Frank was good at disappearing. Now he was back, and he brought medical papers, hospital estimates, photos of Lily in a bed with tubes in her arms. Emily told me none of this at first. I only knew something was wrong. She stopped sleeping, stopped laughing, stared at her phone like it was a loaded gun. Then one night, Ryan told me I should take the next afternoon off. "Go do something nice for Emily," he said while we were loading tools into the van. "You two have that anniversary thing tomorrow, right?" "Yeah," I said, "but we have 3 jobs. I'll cover them." "You never cover anything." He grinned. Maybe I'm becoming a better person. I should have noticed how hard he was trying to smile. I should have noticed he would not look me in the eye. The next day I went home early. I cleaned the apartment, bought flowers, cooked the only meal I knew how to make without burning the place down. I had the ring hidden inside a box of cheap chocolate, 'cause I thought it was funny, and Emily liked things that were almost romantic but not too serious. While I was waiting for her, Northbridge Bank was being robbed by a man wearing my jacket, my boots, my cap, and the gray scarf Emily had given me the previous winter. The security cameras caught him from the side, not clearly enough to prove it was me, clearly enough to make people believe it. The robbery should have been simple. That was what Frank had promised them. Emily and Bob were already inside. They knew where the cash was held. They knew which cameras had blind spots. They knew when the security guard, Mr. Alvarez, would be near the front entrance. Ryan would walk in disguised as me, take the money, leave through the side corridor, and disappear into a van Frank had arranged. Nobody was supposed to die. That was what Emily believed. That was the lie she needed in order to breathe. But Frank had told Ryan something else. If the guard reaches for his gun, you shoot first. If someone dies, the police will need a monster. A robbery is a case. A murder is a headline. Headlines need a face. My face. Mr. Alvarez tried to stop him. Ryan panicked. One shot. That was all it took. By the time the police kicked in my apartment door that evening, Emily's dinner was still warm on the table. I remember the flowers hitting the floor. I remember shouting that I had no idea what they were talking about. I remember one officer asking, "Where's the money, Daniel?" And I remember thinking, for one stupid second, that Emily would clear this up. She would tell them I was innocent. She would tell them I was home. She would tell them I had been making dinner for her, while someone else used my clothes, my name, and my life. Instead, they took me away in handcuffs. At first I thought it was a mistake. A terrible mistake, but still a mistake. Then the statements came in. Emily told the police she recognized me even through the mask. She said I had been asking strange questions about the bank for weeks, where the cash was kept, when the armored truck came, how many guards worked each shift. She cried during the interview. Everyone said she looked broken. Bob told them I had joked about getting rich soon. He said I had asked whether the bank's internal systems could be shut down from the inside. Ryan told them I had left work early that day, acting nervous and excited. He said I told him I had something big planned. They found my clothes in an alley, burned but not destroyed. They found a small amount of cash hidden behind the wall of my apartment. I had never seen it before, but it had my fingerprints on it. I later learned Emily had taken one of my work gloves and given it to her father. That was how they planted the prints. The money was never recovered. The gun was never found. But they did not need either. They had a dead guard. They had 3 witnesses. And they had me. At the trial, Emily would not look at me. That hurt more than the verdict. Ryan looked at the floor. Bob looked straight ahead like he was already practicing being someone important. The judge sentenced me to life with the possibility of parole after 30 years. My mother screamed. My father sat there silently like someone had removed every bone from his body. And Emily cried as if she were the victim. For the first year in prison, I thought about killing myself every day. Not because prison was hard, though it was. Not because men tested me, though they did. But because I kept replaying one question until it became louder than my own heartbeat. Why? I had loved them. I would have died for them. And somehow they had decided I was the one who should disappear. Then came the day in the yard. A young inmate named Theo had arrived that morning. He could not have been older than 19. A group of men surrounded him near the basketball court, laughing, pushing, taking turns, humiliating him. Nobody moved. In prison, compassion is treated like an invitation. But I moved. I told them to leave him alone. They laughed. Then they beat me until I could taste blood in my teeth. I was strong, but there were too many of them. I remember falling to my knees. Then the yard went silent. A line of older men walked toward us. At the center was a thin, white-haired man in a dark coat, even though it was warm outside. His name was Salvatore Sal Marino. Once, people called him the King of New York. By the time I met him, he was an old man with failing lungs and eyes that made younger men step aside. His men pulled the others off me. Sal looked down at me and said, "You are either brave or stupid." I spit blood onto the concrete. Usually both. He laughed. That laugh changed my life. Sal had me brought to his cell block. He asked who I was, what I had done, and why I had stepped in for a boy I did not know. I told him everything. The robbery, the trial, Emily, Ryan, Bob, the betrayal. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "You were not destroyed because they were smarter than you. You were destroyed because you thought being innocent mattered. It should matter." "Yes," he said, "and children should not get sick. Men should not lie. Women should not betray the ones who love them. But here we are." He offered me protection. Then education. Not books, though he gave me those too. He taught me people, how they lie, how they confess without speaking, how greed makes men careless. how guilt makes them sentimental, how fear makes them predictable. He taught me poker, business, patience, silence, and how to make a man walk willingly into the cage you built for him. You do not need rage, he told me. Rage is loud. Revenge should be quiet. Years passed. I became his shadow, then his right hand, then in every way that mattered, his son. The attack happened in my 8th year inside. A crew from another block cornered me during a lockdown riot. They had heard the old rumors that I had robbed a bank and hidden the money before getting caught. They wanted the location. I told them I did not have it. They did not believe me. They cut my face first, then my ribs, then my back. By the time Saul's men found me, I was barely breathing. My face was so damaged that one of them crossed himself before touching me. The prison caught fire that night. Officially, it began during the riot. Unofficially, Sal's people made sure the cameras failed. The doors opened, and several bodies burned badly enough that no one wanted to ask too many questions. One of those bodies became Daniel Carter. The world believed I died in prison. Emily believed it. Ryan believed it. Bob believed it. My parents had already passed by then, both within 2 years of my conviction. They died thinking their son was innocent, but never seeing him free. Maybe that was mercy. Sal sent me to a private doctor outside the country. I survived. Barely. The first surgeries saved my life. The next ones rebuilt my face. The doctor warned me that he could not give me back what I had. I told him that was the point. By the time he finished, the man in the mirror was a stranger. Older. Sharper. Scarred in places no surgeon could fully hide. But not Daniel Carter. That name was buried in prison ash. Sal gave me a new one. Nathan Cole. He also gave me access to a fortune that had slept for years under names no government could easily reach. Accounts in Switzerland. Shell companies in Monaco. Holdings in shipping, real estate, private debt, and casinos. You want revenge? He asked me during one of our last calls before his health collapsed. Yes. Then do not go back as a ghost. Go back as a man they would beg to know. 12 years after my conviction, I returned to New York as Nathan Cole, a European investor with a damaged face, immaculate suits, and more money than most men could imagine spending. Ryan had become exactly what he always pretended he would be, a builder. Brooks Construction had grown from small renovation jobs into luxury developments, mostly through city contracts and private partnerships. Bob had married Emily. Together they ran Miller Parker Capital, a boutique financial advisory firm for wealthy clients who liked hearing words like exclusive, offshore, and high yield. They had a son, Ethan. At first I thought he was Bob's. Then I saw him outside the courthouse months later, and the world shifted under my feet. But before that, I approached Bob and Emily as a client. They wanted me immediately. Men like Bob can smell money the way sharks smell blood. Emily was more cautious. The first time we met, she stared at my scars a little too long. Have we met before? She asked. I smiled. I would remember you. That made her look away. Good. Guilt was still alive in her. I showed them proof of funds through accounts they could verify. Not the whole fortune, just enough to make their hands shake. $2 billion in liquid and semi-liquid assets. Another 8 in controlled holdings. Real money, real documents, a real empire with one lie at its center. Me. I told them I wanted to build something in New York, not just invest. Leave a mark, a tower near the river. Luxury residences, offices, retail, private club space. A project large enough to make everyone involved rich for generations. Bob nearly salivated. Emily asked the right questions. Permits, timeline, capital release, regulatory transfer. I gave the answer I had prepared. The funds were tied to a European family office restructuring. The American entity had been approved, but the transfer window would not open for 90 days. If we waited, the land option would expire and a competitor would take the site. I can cover the first tranche once the release clears, I said, but I need partners willing to move before the market sees what this is. Bob looked at Emily. Emily looked at the numbers. Greed did the rest. They brought in Ryan. He did not recognize me. That was the first moment I understood how completely Daniel Carter was dead. Ryan shook my hand, smiled, and pitched himself as if he had not once worn my jacket to rob a bank. He had aged badly. Too much drinking, too much stress, too much pretending he was not haunted, but he was still Ryan. Loud, hungry, trying to prove he belonged in rooms that made him feel small. The project began. Land acquired. Permits pushed. Investors courted. Loans secured. Client funds quietly redirected into temporary bridge positions. Ryan poured his company into the construction side. Bob and Emily leveraged everything. I was always close enough to encourage them and distant enough to protect myself. Every time they hesitated, I let them see just a little more money. Every time they got nervous, I reminded them that fortunes belonged to people willing to move first. Within 18 months, the tower was rising, glass and steel, a monument to their greed. And then when they had borrowed too much to stop, promised too much to confess, and stolen too much to survive an audit, Nathan Cole disappeared. My phones went dead. My offices closed. My lawyers stopped answering. The European funds never arrived. The loans came due. Investors demanded withdrawals. Regulators began asking questions. And the three people who had once buried me together started digging graves for one another. Bob blamed Ryan for construction delays. Ryan blamed Bob for financing lies. Emily tried to hold everything together while realizing there was nothing left to hold. Their clients sued. The banks moved. Miller Parker Capital collapsed. Brooks Construction followed. Bob faced prison. Emily faced charges for misappropriating client funds. Ryan faced ruin, bankruptcy, and the humiliation of losing everything to the man who had promised to make him rich. The night Ryan killed them, I was in a hotel room 3 blocks away watching the news break. He went to Bob and Emily's house drunk. Neighbors heard shouting. Ryan accused Bob of taking Emily, taking the money, taking everything. Bob called him a coward. Emily tried to calm them down. Ryan shot Bob first, then Emily, then he ran. He was arrested at a bus station 6 hours later. I visited him in prison 2 weeks after his sentencing. He looked older than Sal had looked the day I met him. At first he did not know me. Then I said, "You told me to take the afternoon off." His face emptied. All the blood seemed to leave it at once. "No," he whispered. "Yes." He gripped the table so hard his knuckles turned white. "You died." "I did." He began to cry. I expected satisfaction. I had imagined that moment for years. Him, broken. Me alive. The truth sitting between us like a knife. But his tears did not satisfy me. They annoyed me. "You killed Mr. Alvarez," I said. "You put me in prison. You let Emily lie. You let my parents die knowing their son was trapped in a cage." "We didn't know he'd shoot," Ryan said. "Who?" "Frank. Emily's father. He told me if the guard moved for his gun, I had to do it. He said if nobody got hurt, the cops might keep looking. But if someone died, they'd need you." I stared at him. For the first time in years, I heard something I had not expected. "He planned the murder?" Ryan nodded, shaking. "Emily didn't know that part. I swear. She thought it was just the robbery. She thought we'd pin it on you for a while, then the case would fall apart because the money would never show up. And that makes it better." "No," he said. "Nothing makes it better." "Why?" I asked. It came out quieter than I wanted. Ryan closed his eyes. "Because Emily said Lily was dying." The name meant nothing to me at first. Then I remembered. Emily's little sister. The missing child. The reason Frank had come back. "She told us if we didn't get the money, her sister would die," Ryan said. "Frank had papers. Photos. Hospital bills. Emily said she tried everything. She begged me. Bob, too. We were stupid. We were jealous. We wanted the money, yeah. I won't lie about that. But she made us feel like if we said no, a little girl died because of us." I stood up. He kept talking faster now, desperate to pour out everything before I left. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I was in love with her. Bob was too. We thought if you were gone, maybe one of us would have a chance. I hated myself for thinking it, but I thought it. Then after the trial, after the money, after Frank vanished, Emily never forgave herself. She looked for Lily for years. She never found her. I walked out before he finished. I had spent years believing the betrayal was simple. Money, jealousy, cowardice. It was all of those things. But there had been a child at the center of it. A sick girl used as bait by a father who had sacrificed everyone and saved no one. Finding Lily took me 9 days. Power helps. Money helps more. She had never received the surgery. Frank had taken the money meant for her, abandoned her under a false name, and disappeared. Lily had grown up in state care, bouncing through homes and hospitals, surviving in the stubborn way some children survive when the world gives them no reason to. She was 17 when I found her, 1 month from aging out of the system, still sick, still carrying the same condition that could have been treated years earlier if Frank had used even a fraction of the stolen money. When I first saw her, she was sitting on the steps outside a group home with a plastic grocery bag full of her belongings. She looked like Emily. Not exactly, but enough to hurt. "Lily Parker?" I asked. She looked up, suspicious. "Who's asking?" "A man who owes you something." She laughed bitterly. "Everyone says that before they disappear." "I won't. I paid for the doctors, the surgery, the recovery, the apartment after, the education fund. Not because I owed Emily, not because I forgave anyone, but because Lily was the only innocent person in a crime that had swallowed all of us. Through Lily I met Ethan, Emily's son. He had been placed temporarily with distant relatives after Emily and Bob died, but nobody wanted him permanently. Not really. People are generous with grief until grief requires paperwork. Lily wanted to see him. He wanted to know about his mother. I arranged it. The first time Ethan walked into the room, I almost dropped the glass in my hand. He moved like me, watched like me, had my eyes. I told myself it meant nothing. Children resemble strangers all the time. But I took a strand of hair from his jacket before he left. The test came back 3 days later. Probability of paternity, 99.98%. I read it until the words blurred. Emily had been pregnant when she testified against me. Maybe she knew. Maybe she did not. I would never be able to ask her. For a long time I sat in the dark with that paper in my hand, feeling something worse than anger. Loss. Not the loss of money or love or years. The loss of bedtime stories I had never read. First steps I had never seen. Birthdays I had never known existed. A son who had grown up calling another man father because mine had been stolen before he was born. I did not tell Ethan the truth immediately. You do not walk into a child's life with a DNA test and a dead man's revenge story. I became his guardian first, a friend of the family, a benefactor. Then, slowly, something steadier. Lily stayed close. She and Ethan became family before either of them fully understood why I needed them to. The tower was still unfinished when the bank seized it. A skeleton of glass, debt, and ambition. I bought it back through the company Nathan Cole had created at the beginning of the project. Legally, I had been one of the partners. With Bob dead, Emily dead, and Ryan imprisoned. The remaining claims passed through estate courts and creditors who only cared about being paid. So I paid them. Every debt, every lien, every penalty. Then I renamed the building Carter Tower. Not for Nathan, for Daniel, for the man they had tried to erase. On the day the final glass panel went in, I stood at the top floor with Lily and Ethan. The city spread out beneath us, bright and cruel and beautiful. Ethan pressed his hand to the window. "Is this really yours?" he asked. I looked at his reflection. "No," I said. "Not just mine." Lily smiled faintly. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. Then Frank came back. Men like him always do when they smell money. He found Lily first. Of course he did. He showed up outside her apartment with flowers, tears, and a story about regret. He told her he had been sick. He told her he had been trapped. He told her he had always loved her. Then he asked about the accounts I had set up for her. That was when I stepped out of the car across the street. Frank recognized nothing about my face, but he recognized danger. Men like him always do. "Can I help you?" he asked. "You already have." I took him somewhere private. I will not describe everything that happened there. Some sins deserve silence. But before the end, I made sure he knew who I was. Not Nathan Cole. Not the investor. Not the scarred stranger. Daniel Carter, the boy he had chosen as a sacrifice. For the first time in his life, Frank Parker had no lie left that could save him. A week later, Sal called for me. He was dying, this time for real. I flew to the prison hospital under a name that opened doors and closed mouths. He looked smaller in the bed, less like a king, more like an old man who had carried too many ghosts for too long. "You got what you wanted?" he asked. "I got revenge." "That is not what I asked." I looked out the window. "I found my son." Sal smiled. "Then maybe God has a sense of humor." He coughed hard, then reached for my hand. "There is one more thing." Of course there was. He had a daughter. Her name was Anna Marino. He had kept her hidden from his world, protected by distance, money, and silence. She knew of me. Not everything, but enough. "She has no one after me," Sal said. "You know what that means? It means she needs protection." "No," he whispered. "It means she needs family. Protection is easy. Family is harder." I met Anna 3 days after his funeral. She was not what I expected. No diamonds, no bodyguards, no spoiled princess waiting for her father's empire. She lived quietly outside Boston, ran a small art restoration studio, and looked at me like she had been warned about me, but had decided to judge for herself. "My father said you were the only honest liar he ever met," she said. "That sounds like him. He also said you would come with scars." I have more than he knew. So do I. That was how it began. Not love at first sight. That would make it sound simple. It was recognition. Two people who had inherited damage from men who loved them badly and protected them violently. We took our time. For once in my life, I did not build something from hunger. I built it from patience. Ethan learned the truth when he was old enough to hear it without being destroyed by it. I told him who I had been, what had happened, who his mother was, what she had done, and what she had suffered. He cried. Then he asked if I hated her. I thought about lying. Instead, I said I did, for a long time. And now? I looked at him. Now I think hate is too small for what happened. He nodded, though I do not know if he understood. Maybe one day he will. Lily got healthy. Anna and I married quietly. No cameras. No society pages. No grand revenge ending with enemies kneeling in the street. Just a small ceremony near the water with my son standing beside me and Lily crying harder than anyone. Years earlier, I thought revenge would give me my life back. It did not. Revenge gave me answers. It gave me justice or something close enough to wear the same face in poor lighting. But it did not return my parents. It did not return the years. It did not make Emily innocent. It did not make Ryan or Bob less guilty. It did not make the boy I had been climb out of that prison fire untouched. What saved me came after. A sick girl who should have been saved years ago. A son I never knew existed. A dying old criminal who understood loyalty better than the people I once called friends. A woman who saw my scars and did not ask me to pretend they were beautiful. People think betrayal turns you into a monster. It can. For a while it did. But the final choice is not whether you become dangerous. Sometimes the world makes that choice for you. The final choice is what you do after the people who hurt you are gone. I destroyed the people who stole my life. Then I saved the ones they left behind. And maybe that is the only reason there was anything human left in me to save. If this story taught me anything, it's that revenge may give you justice, but it doesn't always give you peace.